I am so excited to do another episode of 10,000 Voices, always here to amplify every woman's I am and to make sure that the voices of our entrepreneurs spread across the globe. The number one issue that I find that women have is visibility. So this is just one platform of many that I hope that the world gets to hear from beautiful women like you. So we are going to jump in. I always have standard questions because the entrepreneurial journey for women often does not get told by us. So this is all about you, Jackie, and how are you doing today?
I'm phenomenal. I'm so grateful to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. I love stealing busy women's time. I'm like, thank you for sharing your voice and your gifts with me. So first question that I always like to ask, what is your origin story and why did you start your business?
Hmm. I started my business in a moment of empowerment. I thought that I was in my dream job. I came from the travel and hospitality industry. And when I had finally gotten to this one company, I thought this is going to be the place that I retire.
Yeah.
And management shifted, things changed, the environment was no longer what I was looking for. I could not find my way of growth there. And I started looking at other places. Where am I going to work? Who's going to hire me?
Yeah.
Um, and what I found was that nothing was really giving me the path forward. It was just all lateral.
Plateauing
Yeah.
again. Yeah.
And I would still find myself in that new company in the same space I was in the current one, which was now what?
Yep.
And I was ready for more. So I started Inspire Journey Consulting in October 2019.
Mhm.
And it had started as a very different concept than what I'm doing today.
Interesting.
So I was staying in travel, but I was niching into the wellness space because it was really important to me. And it's funny when I look at my mission today versus what it was. My mission and vision are actually haven't changed all that much. They're still so aligned from the beginning, which was helping support people's emotional healing. And that
Wow.
was always part of what I wanted to do. The entire reason I wanted to even be in that space was to help people heal. And throughout the years, I spent time tapping into my intuition and really understanding it. And it's so funny when you're on this journey that you're confronted with who you are and what you want out of this life.
I love those words, confronted with who you are. Um, Michelle Obama says, being a leader doesn't change who you are, it exposes who you are. The same is about entrepreneurship. It does not change who you are, it reveals the kind of person you know you are meant to be. And if that person is fabulous, you have a fabulous organization. If that person is horrible, you are probably going to be a horrible human regardless.
Yes.
So, but yeah, confronting who you are, that's probably a better word. I like that word. Was this your first business or have you tried to start other businesses before?
No, this was my first.
Interesting. So your learning curve is all the way up. So, what's one thing you would share with a woman who's like, I am thinking about entrepreneurship mid-career? What's one thing you would share with her about your journey thus far and the vision that you're casting?
Mm. Uh, part of me wants to say the Nike, just do it. Uh, because I know that I spent so long not taking the jump, making the jump.
Yeah.
And so much longer actually than I even remembered. I had friends telling me, you've been talking to me about this for 14 years. And I was like, oh, really? I somehow blocked that part of my brain. But I also think it's to allow yourself a bit of, I want to say flexibility, but also some grace, recognizing that as you go into this, it might grow and change into something that's a better fit.
Yes. Yes. Especially if you've spent your career living other people's version of who they say you are. You've got to give yourself breathing room to reconnect to what you are supposed to be doing anyway.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's why the transition out of corporate sometimes jars us, self included, because we've spent so long adapting to the version that the world expects of us. And now we have this opportunity to be all that we're supposed to be. And it's like, well, what does it look for me to take up space? Oh, right. I am supposed to be evolving as a human, whereas corporate said, no, I only want this one version of the human that you are. And then you realize the breadth and depth, it can be overwhelming. That's my word. I was overwhelmed by who I was. And then
Mhm.
it made me cry
Mm,
that I left so many parts of me, forgot that she was there.
yeah. Wow. I feel that really deeply. I think we do such a great job shrinking ourselves to fit other people's narratives.
Yep.
And it is constantly evolving and breaking through that. You know, we as women, right? We talk about the glass ceiling and the barriers that have been put in our way. Well, we've put them around ourselves too. And I think seeing those and breaking through your own barriers that you didn't, your invisible ones, the ones you did not realize were there, that's a constant journey. And if you're prepped for it as an entrepreneur to really dig in there, it is so awesome because then you become immersed in your own power.
Ooh, I love. Can we steal a soundbite? You will be immersed in your own power. Um, but it's not all turning up roses, right? We all have our entrepreneurial setbacks. What's one thing that you're really glad you overcame as an entrepreneur, right? Because I think it's really easy to paint the floral picture, and most of the time I do. But there are things that only women entrepreneurs go through. What do you think those things are?
Mm. Having to prove your worth. I think we are faced more often with, well, are you certified?
Do you have a credential?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is that consistent question and commentary that comes up as if we are not already questioning things ourselves.
Yeah.
And then someone brings you that.
Yeah. And we think it's imposter syndrome. We label that part as imposter syndrome, even though we have the credentials, we have the expertise, and we have the experience. I think it's mislabeling.
Mhm.
If it's somebody else challenging it, it's not you saying, hey, do I have it? It's this other person who wants you to validate and verify that you have it. And then that's when I think the rest of these things start to creep in
Mhm.
for us.
And what I love to reference and think about is the studies that have been shown between men and women applying for jobs.
Yes.
And you can have those list of, I don't know, let's say 15 requirements to
Yep.
even apply. And a woman will make sure that she has 15 of those 15 to apply. And the man can have one and apply confidently. You know, really being mindful of that
Mhm.
And the other piece, and I would say this all the time to men and women in their career, if they're questioning the certification level that they have, the level of education that they have, I need an MBA for this, I need whatever. Do you? Is that going to get you paid more?
Right.
Right. And there are people with however many initials and however many things they've done and money that they've invested and time that they've taken. And that is phenomenal knowledge that I'm so grateful for them that they have. We all have our own avenues for that.
Yep.
But the amount of initials at the back of your name doesn't actually equate to the amount of money you make or the value of what you bring.
Yes. And this is from someone who's been a school teacher, works in higher ed. I tell people all the time, know why you are getting a degree or do not go get one. Know exactly what that degree is going to do for you, how it's going to serve you. Otherwise, spend your time, money, and resources someplace else that will give you instant value. And this is not the same thing as instant gratification. This is, will this give me instant value for the quality of life that I want, for the legacy that I'm trying to build? If it does not check those boxes, how else can you gain the skill set that you need? And it might not be $100,000 degree. It might be a 1-year certification from the community college. You learn the exact same thing.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Thank you. Best investment, worst investment that you've made thus far?
Best investment, hands down, has always been working with coaches.
Yeah.
Always. I don't think I ever really even understood the role of a coach until I started my business and started working with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I am so grateful, yourself included. The brilliance that you give is out of this world. And having a thought partner, it's huge. I think one thing that you don't think about when you come into this is another guidance to keep in mind, is how lonely it is.
Yeah.
And there's somebody, when you find the coach that's aligned with you, there's an investment, and it's not just a financial investment. You can feel that care and that emotional investment, somebody who's cheering you on, who wants you to be your best, who wants you to succeed. And you succeed, they succeed. Like, everybody wins. So that, hands down, has always been my best investment.
Yes. And frequently, because each coach does something different for the parts of the business that you need to remove blockers from or to proceed forward. That's why I tell people, I might be running this business alone, but I am not a solopreneur. I've had a business coach. I've had a strategist. I have a therapist. There's a team of people helping me show up as one so I can go serve. So it always baffles me when people say, how's being a solopreneur? I'm like, I don't know. Go find me one and we'll go talk to them.
I love that. I had never thought of it that way, and I really appreciate that. So I'm going to change how I present as well.
Absolutely. I was like, how many people pour over me and my experience every day? And then I said, if nothing else, I have the Trinity on my side. So if I don't see it in humans, I know that there's another entity working on my behalf. So I never am alone, even when I feel those lonely moments. And that really helps on those down days. Yeah.
And there are down days.
There are down days, and that's okay too. But don't you have down days in corporate?
Everybody does.
Everyone does.
Everybody does.
Oh my goodness. How do you protect your I am? I am all about honoring what you call yourself and what you allow people to call you. How do you protect that? Because people challenge it.
I would say I live it, I reinforce it.
Yeah.
I make corrections when need be.
Gently nudge you towards where I need you to be.
Um, and for me, it's really feeling it firmly within me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a point in time where didn't care what they called me, I just wanted them to call. And now it's very much like, no, I want to have the right people work with me, come to me. You know, there's a difference between working with someone who doesn't want to be coached.
Yeah.
And it amazes me because I've had them and I'm like, why are we here?
Are we going?
Versus the ones who are really ready to dive in. And I think the ones that are really ready to dive in see you and feel that I am clearly.
Yeah. And in alignment with your I am too, right? So when I pivoted, and we're going to talk about pivots in a second, with your business, when I pivoted and I said, no, I am only working with women of faith, people were like, are you crazy? Are you going to tell that to the world? I said, but that's who I am. And if I leave that behind, then I'm no better than the person that I left at corporate, where I'm still pretending to serve everybody the same when I know I'm not. That's a disservice to me and the other person.
I love that.
So yeah, I totally, I hear you. Affirmed. So I want to transition now because like I said, I think it's so important that the the 10,000 voices experiences also have value for everyone. And anybody watching this who is struggling in their business, I want them to know that there are always experts around and resources available, and there's just so much noise um, on YouTube and in the world to watch an interaction with somebody who might be able to help you figure it out, or to know that your business challenge might be theirs too, and they can hear your thing and then how I respond. So I love doing this part. And what you sent to me is, Sybil, I'm gonna read this word for word. I want to know about speaking. I'd love to talk through the word abuse and how it makes people feel uncomfortable. While you believe in the importance of eradicating shame around that word, you also know it needs to get in the room so that you can deliver this message. So first, in case people were wondering, yes, Jackie is also a speaker, a paid professional speaker. And I make that the distinction because if you're not getting compensated as community service, Jackie gets paid to use her voice to talk. Tell us a little bit about your speaking platform, and then I'll dive into this question.
Sure. So I speak on quieting the self-doubt monster. In my mindset coaching and what I bring oftentimes using my voice is the power of helping people who have been abused
Yeah.
and shifting that lingering self-doubt from gaslighting into their truth of empowerment and their own voice.
Yeah, absolutely. And abuse is one of those words that does trigger. I think we all, if we look back on it, we either were, are currently in, or we know someone who was. So all of us in this world have been affected directly or indirectly from abuse. And so it's one of those words that we have got to stop giving so much power to, because, right, if we keep giving power to this word, then it's going to keep happening even after the thing has already happened. And it's terrible. It does bring shame because there are not enough safe spaces for people to talk and say, and this includes men, you know, men who were abused as well. When you think about the type of abuse that you're talking about, what type of abuse specifically are you trying to address?
Mm. So it's actually, I would say overall, I spend the most time talking about emotional and mental abuse because every type of abuse that you experience has that impact on you.
Right.
And those are the lingering after effects that come with it. And if you don't mind, if I might say, when you talked about removing the power, I really love that. And I would also say shifting that power, right? That word should evoke emotion, but the emotion don't believe should be shame. It should be change.
That just gave me the chills. I love, yes, it should not be shame, it should be change. Why change?
Because that gives you the action, the activate, the let's do something, that I want to get out of this, the oh my gosh, you see that abuse is happening. We can't let that happen. We
Yeah,
need to help. We need to do those things. Change needs to happen.
absolutely.
And maybe it's change within, but oftentimes when people hear that, they're confronted with it like, oh, let's keep this place comfortable. Mm, comfortable for who?
Ooh, I know, who's comfortable. I'm not. Um, But you bring up really valid points, and I think those are components to put in your speaking. And when you think about how do I title the speech around abuse, I always look to synonyms. I believe that there's power in all the words that we use. And if there's a better, more intentional abuse word that will still connect people, but be less triggering, then let's use that word because the message is still the same. It's very much like why people say, oh, do you talk about DE&I? I was like, well, yeah, but my foot in the door message is let's talk about the future of work. Let's talk about re-educating our professionals. Let's talk about the other things that tie into the overall message of DE&I. And it lands differently because now I've disarmed my audience before they have the chance to dismiss me. I get a chance to catch you while your volume, one of my coaches said, where's the audience volume? I get to catch you and your volume's still at a 7. Because when I go in the room and I say I'm talking to D&I, you're at a 2. I don't want to have to work that hard to get you to a 10. You're listening at a 7. I need to 8, 9, 10 you. So I got 30 seconds to 8, 10 you instead of working from a 2 or a 3. Now that 30 seconds, you're at a 5, maybe a 6. No, you're not listening. So what are some other words that people associate with abuse that you've heard in your work where they say, because we also know denial is a part of abuse. What do they say instead of abuse? What other words or phrases do they use?
Mm. Manipulation,
Mm.
lies,
Mm.
control,
Mm-hmm.
misuse of power.
Mm. Here's why I love all of those words and not abuse. It's because while we cannot all agree on the variations of abuse, communally, we know when somebody tries to manipulate us because that happens all the time, right? From the used car salesman to the spouse to the person in the workplace to my supervisor who's doing things differently. That word resonates, it hits differently. We know it's an abuse when you're being manipulated. We know that there's a hurt that's happening. And I can specifically, like, if you were to ask an audience, when were you abused? Oh, never. If you were to ask an audience, hey, do you remember that time somebody manipulated you into doing something you didn't want to do when you were 10.
Mm.
Everybody's got a 10-year-old, oh, my older sister or brother made me. And right now I have a bridge built because they've personalized that story.
Mhm.
I now get to talk about why manipulation is a type of abuse.
Mm. I'm curious if
Mhm.
it, as I think about it, that it's not just a type of abuse, it's always present.
It's always present in abuse.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm taking notes on this too. Y'all, by the way, I send notes after these calls. I'm like, here you
Good,
go.
because otherwise I'd be typing.
Oh, try this. It is always present in abuse. Absolutely. As are lies,
Hmm.
as are control, as is misuse of power. And especially if you are talking in corporate settings, okay, now my things are going off, right? If I think, how do you take this into a corporation? You get to talk about misuse of power because that is trending.
Yeah.
We are watching these chief suites misuse power, exit people inappropriately, create unsafe workplaces. What if in corporations you start talking about the misuse of power
Mhm.
and how to spot signs that the workplace is unhealthy, that this is tying into the employee experience?
Mm, I love that. I feel
Mhm.
inspired just being here. Yeah.
Like when I think about HR, right? Former HR over here, if somebody wanted to come in my workplace and talk about abuse, I'd be like, no, I don't want to hear it. If somebody came and said, hey, Sybil, in your workplace, have you seen these 5 signs? You always want to tie it to a number. Have you seen these 5 things that signal a misuse of power? I'd say, wow, yes, my team needs to hear this.
Mm, I love that so much. I will tell you that I have thought to myself, HR doesn't want to hear from me. I talk about abuse. And,
And I just
um,
confirmed that HR doesn't want to. Okay. So this is unscripted. Yeah, HR, I would not read a let's talk about abuse pamphlet. I would send somebody to the EAP
I wouldn't send it.
and say, yep, Sue, go talk to the EAP people. But if you said,
Mm,
let's talk about our company culture from a misuse of power or turn it on its head, here's how you validate appropriate use of power, right? Because
mm,
you want to pro con this thing.
mhm,
I would say, wow, yes, all of my leaders need to understand that they might be the giant in the room and they don't realize it,
mm,
right? You're stomping around, you're the giant in the room, and you haven't acknowledged you're the giant in the room. And so now we have these incidences of poor employee experience because you never transitioned into your position of power. You're still pretending to be a peer.
mm,
Now I get to talk about why this power dynamic needs to be worked out as a part of your promotion process. Now I get to talk about all of the other layers that come along with the responsibility of having power in the workplace. I'm still talking about abuse, but now it's more human.
yeah,
I can relate, everybody can relate to a bad boss,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So I think if you're interested in talking in corporate spaces,
Mhm.
that might be a really good lead in. And then you tie it to the 3 things every corporate leader should know about abuse of power, or the 3 things every corporate leader should know about, um, like I said, waking your inner giant, right? Because you've got this really huge thing, even if you still feel small. Because
Mm,
what I found in the research is a lot of people, not a lot, but research shows that sometimes people don't even realize they're being manipulative because they don't understand the ramification.
mm,
So you're being a butt at work and you don't even realize it because you don't understand what the authority is behind it. That's another word, authority. You don't understand the authority behind your power and post, especially if you moved up through the ranks.
mhm.
And for somebody, again, we're covering HR over here, most of the time that's missed. HR hires for skill and they say, I'll train for leadership later. Your positioning is, thank you for having the skill. Here's how I ensure you keep your team safe and you don't fall into control, lie, manipulations, misuse of power. Here's where you need to check yourself. Here's the psychology behind it. Here's the research behind it. As an
Mm,
HR practitioner, sign me up for that one.
mm. That's brilliant. Can we look at another space?
Yes. What other space are we considering?
All right. So if we're looking in the space of women empowerment,
Okay. I've got a lot of questions about that.
cool.
Uh, so, in the women's empowerment sphere, because I talk in that sphere as well, right? By the way, y'all, no such thing as competition. Blah. Anyway, cheap plug. I work in that space as well. What I have found is I don't talk about abuse necessarily,
Mhm.
but it comes in conversation. What I talk about is how are you protecting your I am, which is the truths that you know about you, and how can you find affirmation through activity? Because I'm all about taking action. How can you affirm what you know to be true? Go do something. That's the quickest way to affirm is go do a thing. You're over here saying, right, if this thing happened to you, here's how you resolve it so you then can take action. There's a lot of spaces
Mhm.
for this. There are nonprofits that specifically cater to women. There are transition services who specifically cater to women. There are organizations that say, you know what, um, like one that I partnered with that does backpacks for women who are leaving domestic violence organizations. They always bring in trainers because they want to arm the police to let the police know that this might not be a regular domestic dispute because Sally's called 7 times in the last 3 months to help police even have that concept, because we're also seeing this too. And this is not a defund the police, it's none of that. But what we are seeing, right, is police don't have those de-escalation techniques.
Right.
What would it mean for you to deliver this training to them so that they can help these women leave these abusive homes? Or are you then talking in the women's empowerment space to other women's associations that support the baseline women?
So what do you mean when you say baseline women?
So, like, there are women who have already gone through the things and they're like, okay, let's do this program. We know that there are women there who might have gone through it, but they're not there yet. Or do you want to talk directly to the woman who is in the abusive situation right now to help her?
Mm.
Two different
So,
audiences.
all right. So great question. So what I would say is the people that I speak to are not in crisis.
Okay.
They're out of crisis. They're maybe started their healing journey.
Yeah.
Um, and we really talk self-doubt,
Mm.
because what happens is no matter the healing you do, if that self-doubt piece isn't addressed, you find yourself in different versions of an abusive relationship over and over, different areas of your life. And just when you think you've caught it, it comes up somewhere else. And it also, outside of just abuse, you're abusing yourself. You're gaslighting yourself with those lies. And so we talked about being in those invisible boxes and keeping ourselves small. It plays out here as well, because now you're used to saying those things to yourself. You're used to experiencing it in real life. So you're allowing things to happen to you that you didn't even realize.
Yeah. I
So we
like
need
what
to reverse that space.
you said, you're allowing it. And I know no woman wants to hear this, but yes, you're also culpable in creating your reality. Like you get a choice.
We make an average of 35,000 choices every day.
Yeah. That one sit 35,000 choices, most of them subconscious, but yeah, 35,000 choices. You're in control.
Yeah.
Name it and claim it. So it sounds like to me that we can just get you partnered, it sounds like to me we can get you partnered with any women's association and they will want this message as long as it's positioned appropriately. I have a list of associations done. See, there we go.
Beautiful. Now we
Look,
just position appropriately and check.
check. List of associations being sent to you, Jackie. Oh my gosh. I think it's so important that, again, resources not be hidden from us as entrepreneurs. And so often it's just like, how do I ask this question? There you go. List of associations. I will put them in my email to you. And yeah, positioning again with them might look similar to say, I know you support women in this way. Here's how my message ties in. Yeah.
I love that. I will tell you that the last position that I had before I started my business, I was chasing my tail, working on a promotion, found myself in a hostile work environment, put under a thumb, and could not understand why I wasn't getting a seat at the table.
Yep.
And I built my own. And, I don't tell anyone to go start their own business. What I'm telling you is claim your seat or claim your table.
Ooh.
And I want us to be able to do that by overcoming our doubt. And it's actually, let me slow my roll. I call it quieting the self-doubt monster for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
because it will always be there. It's how our brain naturally works, but we can work to quiet it and increase the positive.
Yeah. Yeah. Such good sound bites from you today. Clean your seat or build your table. Yes. Yes. Yes, and yes. And so often we think, oh, I just have to have a seat at the table. Well, I had one, but it came with the agreement that I would be quiet, that I would pretend that I wasn't really sitting there. I'm in a folding chair, and you got the nice leather thing happening. I'm being ridiculous here, but seriously, that was the cost of me having a seat. I was at the table. They said, here you go. And they made it the most uncomfortable hot seat you could sit in. Hot seat is not a seat at the table. A hot seat is a hot seat.
That is not all seats are created equal. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then, yeah, I was like, that's fine. I'll create my own room. You can have a seat at your broken down table. I'm going to create some rooms here. So, oh my goodness. I hope that helped you get a little bit more clarity around shaping your brand voice, because it's definitely a message women need to hear.
That was amazing. That was honestly such a gift that I needed today. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with me. So last few minutes, this is your time to connect to the audience at large. How can they find out more about what you do? What's like a signature experience that they can only get from Jackie? And then best ways to reach out to you on social or whatever it is.
Absolutely. So what I would say is go to my website. It's a mouthful, but it's worth it. inspiredjourneyconsulting.com/gift. And when
Okay.
you go there, you can download the 5-minute mental wellness guide. And also, as an extra, schedule a free breakthrough session with me. So we work on retraining your brain to create more of that self-love, less of that self-doubt, and empower your authentic voice.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your voice and your story with me today. This concludes this version of 10,000 Voices. Till next time, you ladies already know I want you to lead boldly, find a way to spread joy, and of course, don't forget to become unstoppable.